Hi everyone, my name is Huang. I'm a cloud solution architect working for Microsoft. And today I'm here to present to you the topic AI in Power BI. In recent years, Microsoft has made a lot of investment on AI within Power BI in the with the aim to democratize AI, so to enable your end users, analysts, BI professions, as well as data scientists to be able to utilize the machine learning features without having to necessarily use something like Azure machine learning. So within Power BI, you have different kind of features of AI that you can work with. The first set of features are insights, and they're typically visualizations, just like a bar chart and pie charts that you can build within Power BI desktop and your end users can interact with. And the second group of features are enrichment, and these are referring to the integration of Power BI with cognitive services. For those of you who are not familiar with cognitive services, these are pre-trained machine learning models that's kind of pre-trained and deployed by Microsoft, and you typically interact with those pre-trained models using APIs. And Power BI has built-in integration with those, and we'll show those later in the demo as well. Now, some people might say, I don't want pre-trained models by Microsoft. I would like to build my own models. Power BI does offer the functionality to integrate with Azure Machine Learning as well. So if you have data scientists in your organization or you're a data scientist yourself, you could build a machine learning model in Azure Machine Learning, deploy that as a real-time inference endpoint, and then Power BI will be able to speak to that endpoint and score your data. Last but not least, if you would like to build custom machine learning models, but you don't know, how to code Python or Power BI service does give you an option to do automated machine learning as well. So without having to code a single line of code, you are able to build a custom machine learning model. So all of these we'll do a demo for today. So the first set of features are insights. And today we're going to demo 5 different AI visuals. The first is key influencer. These are great for finding the key factor behind a certain metrics. So if you have a certain metric that you're looking for, and you don't know what's driving those metrics to be high or low or certain categories, you can use key influencers to find your answers. Q&A is the feature that enable your end users to ask a question about your data using natural language processing. So without having to build a visual specifically for all kind of different users, you could just have the Q&A visual in your Power BI report and ask your users to just type a question, and then the visuals will be built for them automatically. The third is decomposition tree. We typically advocate for users to use them for root cause analysis. And the fourth is smart narratives. Over the years, we see a lot of our customers would do a snapshot of Power BI report and put that into PowerPoint. And in order to address that need, we built something called smart narratives. Basically, depending on what you have on the report, smart narratives will populate the narratives for you automatically. And the last is anomaly detection. Anomaly detection is an API that's offered by cognitive services. And this is now built into Power BI. So on a time series data, you are able to detect anomalies and also find possible explanations for those anomalies. So without spending too much time on PowerPoint, I'm going to jump over to a demo. So this is my first data set I'm going to use today. this is my data set on a lot of different comic characters. So Marvel's, DC's, other publishers, and what characters they have, and different attributes of those characters, and most importantly, whether they are good or bad characters. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to go build a key influencers visual and try to understand what is driving certain character to be bad. So first, what we're going to do is to just drop in alignment, and we want that alignment to be bad. And then we can drop in a few different attributes. As you can see, I'm not necessarily dragging them over. Power BI is quite smart in figuring out whether these columns should go. So you can just tick these columns. And if in case Power BI put them in the wrong field, you can always drag them around. So as you can see, I just popped some of the columns in. Now, key influencers telling me if a character has red eye, then it's 1.8 times more likely that it's a bad character. If you look at the explanation, and I'm going to toggle over to the tooltip, it's telling me 50% of the red-eyed characters are bad versus the average of the others are 26%. And that's where the 1.8 times is being calculated. So we're saying if you are red-eyed character, you are 1.8 times more likely to be a bad character. Now you might wonder, all of these characters have like red/white eyes or yellow/red eyes. These are 100% bad. Why are they not listed as a top key influencer? And I can toggle this on to just show the key influencer. Now, if I toggle this off, you can see the count of that hero is 1, and the count of the red hero is 46. So this is to say that key influencers do not only take into account of the percentage of the alignment is bad within that particular population group, it also takes into account the size of the group. So if you only have one character, even though 100% of that one character is bad, it's not big enough of a population to influence the overall kind of result. So typically these ones where you have a large number of population and the alignment is bad gets picked up by key influencers. And in addition to individual factors, what you could also do is to look at top segments, and these are combination of different factors. So the height of the bubble shows the percentage of the alignment being bad in that particular segment or combination of factors, and the size of the bubble shows the size of the population. So if we click into this, you'll be able to see if a character is male and if he has no hair, then there's a 45% or 47% population of those combinations are bad characters versus overall there's 28%. So you can see the combination of different factors in top segments as well. I had mainly kind of categorical attributes in here, as well as my targets kind of column to analyze is also categorical, but you can absolutely use numerical measures, different kind of attributes for these. It doesn't necessarily have to be categorical. Numerics works, measures work as well. So one use case that we see a lot with key influencers is to do a side-by-side comparison. So if I toggle on filters, you will see that for this filter, I had filtered down to Marvel, and for that filter, I had filtered down to DC. And you can see how the key influencers for Marvel and DC universe is different. So it's quite unfortunate if you have red eyes in Marvel universe, but it's even worse if you have black eyes in DC universe kind of things. So in reality, we see a lot of customers use these in the sense of comparing, for instance, to regions or to production plants, that kind of things to see the driving force behind certain metric or certain KPI that they are looking at. And the second feature we're going to cover is something called Q&A. So Q&A is a visual on itself. We can find it in the visualization pane here. And here you can ask Power BI a question. So I'm going to ask, for instance, average height by race. Then it will give me a visual already to kind of show the answer of my question. If I don't like bar charts, if I say I want a tree map instead, it will just give me a tree map to show the answers as well. So I could click here and turn this into a standard visual, so it'll just be added to my report. And you can also configure Q&A as well. So here you have field synonyms. Power BI already have a lot of synonyms built in, and that help kind of the users with the natural language processing, with the questions they're asking. But you can also promote the suggested synonyms into the terms. And if it is on the left side of terms, it will get picked up automatically by Power BI. So when you ask a question about Marvel appraisals, Power BI will understand it is Marvel reviews, for instance. And you can also include or exclude certain columns or tables with Q&A. So you don't have to include everything if you don't want to. And there's another very cool thing. So I have a visual here that says count by heroes by publisher. Now, if I change that publisher, if I rename this field, oh, sorry, something went wrong. I didn't need to remove it. I want to rename it. I don't want this to be called publisher anymore. I want this to be called Comic Universe. And then if I go back to Power BI and I look at the synonyms, you'll see that in the publisher synonyms for the suggested terms, Comic Universe got picked up. So as you rename the fields for your visuals, Power BI would understand it is a synonyms, and then you can decide to promote it to terms instead. You could also review questions. So once you publish these to Power BI service, what happens is your users could ask questions about your data sets. You can see the most popular questions that get asked by your users, or you could see that some users might use some terminologies that's specific to your organization that didn't get picked up by Power BI. In that case, then you can kind of teach Power BI or teach Q&A to understand them. So if I do this and I say average height by, for instance, sex, and Power BI basically has a red underline here, says I don't understand what is sex, and I can submit it. And I can tell Power BI sex is actually gender in this case, and I want to save. Then you can see next time anyone type in a question that says average, I don't know, weight by sex, Power BI would understand sex actually referred to gender. And you can see all the terms that you've managed. As you can see, everything that I touched today gets kind of populated in this window. I can delete them as I want. And also the last bit is the suggested questions. So it could be some questions you think is really important for your customers to understand, or some kind of generic questions to get your customers or end users started. So we can just do, for instance, average height by sex, and we can add here and we'll save here. And what would happen is when the customer go to the Q&A visual, so if I kill this, the suggested questions will show up here. So instead of typing their own questions, they can just click into these and the visual will get populated for them. And if they want, they can just amend these on top and then kind of build their own custom visuals as well. So that's what Q&A is. Next what I want to show is the decomposition tree, which is a new roots cause analysis tool. So here I have a decomposition tree that was analyzing the average height. So what I can do is I can draw down to different dimensions as I want. So I can draw down to eye colors, for instance. So people who have, or characters have silver eyes, have the highest average heights. And I can keep drilling down to different dimensions, but I can also use AI built in Power BI to help me decide, okay, what is the next dimension that is driving high value in the eye color that's being silver. So I can just tick on the high values and it would decide which dimension to draw down to out of everything I had put into the decomposition tree. And you can see the difference between these two is this is called a light bulb, meaning this is being generated by AI, and this doesn't have a light bulb. And these typically means that then they are manually selected by the author of the report. Now you can lock these. Then once you lock these will always shown as being expanded. So your users can kind of expand from the next level forward. But if you unlock these, then they would have the option to kind of collapse these and then choose the next levels or choose the levels they're interested in, for instance. So that's the decomposition tree. You see this typically in, again, kind of root cause analysis for certain KPIs. What is driving the backlog to be super high, or what is driving the lead time to be super long? And you can draw down to certain dimensions. The next we want to show is smart narratives. I just have a visualization that's built here. And now instead of kind of doing a screenshot of this and put that into a PowerPoint report, what I can do is to put a smart narratives visual on the canvas. And you can see that Power BI kind of populates the description of what I had put on this on the reports. So I can amend these if I don't want certain narratives. I can kind of delete them, and then I can also write my own, right? So I can say average weights by, I don't know, gender is, and then I can add a value. Again, this will be the same as your Q&A. You can just ask a question and I'll just do average weights by gender. And I can save. Right, okay. It's because it's asking for a a dimension. So we'll do that. We'll do alignment and we'll save. Yeah. And then what you can do is to kind of interact with the visuals. And what you would do is you can filter it down by kind of cross-highlighting and cross-filtering to look at different measures being kind of updated as you're updating the visual themselves. I think I did something wrong in the values here. So we'll come back to this in a bit. The idea of the smart narratives is you don't have to kind of transport your Power BI reports to your PowerPoint and then write your own kind of stories. You can let Power BI do the job and embed your Power BI into your presentation. As you click on different elements of the visuals, the narratives will automatically update by just interaction with the report as well. So the next bit we're going to do is the anomaly detection. So anomaly detection typically works with a time series data. So here I have some sales data for the last few years. And instead of having its own visual, what it does have is kind of within the analytics well of the line charts, you can find anomalies at the bottom of the analytics well. So you can do add here, and you can move the sensitivity kind of level. The less sensitive it is, the less anomalies this visual will pick up. So we'll leave it at 40, and then we can say, okay, we want to explain by some attributes. So we want to explain by city, country, maybe states, and region, and we'll do apply. So what happens then is you can click on certain data points like this one, and then Power BI will kind of explain the anomalies, saying the city being Seattle is driving that anomaly super high. And that also could be different data points. It says, okay, there is anomaly, we acknowledged it, but we can't find any significant drivers behind this. And this is also highly possible. We just rolled out a new feature within Power BI service that will let users do this without you having to populate them within Power BI desktop. So if I quickly go over to my Power BI service, this is the same line charts that got published to my Power BI service, my workspace. As a user, I just see this line chart, which don't necessarily tell me a lot, but I can click on the Get Insight on top, and then sort of it picks up the anomalies in here. So I can click on anomalies in sales, for instance, and then click on this. And it says, okay, the segment is customer is driving that particular day to be super high. As you remember, when I did it in desktop, I didn't actually have any segment in. So sometimes it's better to use this in service because it does look at the overall picture than just the columns that you would pick in desktop as well. So once I kind of played around with this, I could understand the data a little bit more. Now let's go back to my PowerPoint slide. So the next part of the AI features within Power BI is the interaction with the integration with cognitive services. These currently include two different kind of elements. One is text analytics, the other is image tagging. Within text analytics, you can do sentiment analysis, sentiment scoring, or you can do key phrase extraction. So we'll do those. Let's go back to my data set here. So what I have here is another table that had some movie reviews of the Thor theories, and then what sources they come from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Power Query editor. And within my Power Query editor, I have this AI insights, and I can click on text analytics. And I would spend a few seconds trying to find kind of the functions that I have access to. And this will list three different functions, one being sentiment scoring. And this is the one that we're currently going to use. The other is key phrase extraction, which will be great for something like a word cloud. And the third is detect language. So you can basically ask Power BI to tag the language that the certain review is in. So here you can choose the capacity for this to score on, and then you will need to give it the column of the target that you're trying to analyze. So we want to analyze review. We want to use this specific capacity. This is a premium per user feature. So you will need to have access either to a premium node or a premium per user workspace in order to use this. So we're going to click OK. Now this will take a few seconds for Power BI to get scores and return the score of the sentiment. Demo God is not with me today, is it? Try this again. Well, meanwhile, just wanted to show you how this looks like. Oops. So it will return a sentiment score, and the closer the score it is to 1, the more positive the sentiment is. The closer the score it is to 0, the more negative the score is. So once the score has returned, you can then build visualizations on top to say, by, for instance, movie, which one has the average highest score, or by source of the critiques, which one gives the highest kind of sentiment score, things like that. The next we're going to do is key phrase extraction. So again, very, very similar. We're going to go to the text analytics API and then pick key phrase extraction, and then pick the column, and then pick the review. And then we're going to let this run for a few seconds. Meanwhile, I had this down just prior to this demo. So once it is scored with the key phrase extraction, it looks like this. It gives you all the key phrases individually, so explodes the table a little bit, and also gives you the key phrases together. So then what you could do is you can bring in like the word cloud visual by doing the get more visuals, and you can do a word cloud with the extracted key phrase. So once that's extracted, what I can do is I'm going to drop in the key phrases. Then you can easily make a word cloud on top of it. Basically, this is saying, because it's a Thor movie, then Marvel gets mentioned, Thor gets mentioned, the name of the director gets mentioned, and so on and so forth. So now that's being scored, we can do the exact same thing that I just did. The next one I was going to show is the image tagging. So I can't use Marvel images because I don't have the copyright. These are the images I took a couple of weeks ago when I went to a safari in England. Yes, there is safari in England. And I took some images and I want to interact with these images using image tagging. Again, very, very similar. What I can do is to go to transform, go into the Power Query Editor view, and then go to Vision. It will pick up the Vision API I have access to. Again, this will need either premium node or premium capacity workspace in order to work, because basically there's nothing traveling over the public internet to the cognitive service APIs. These are getting scored on your premium or premium per user capacity. Everything stays within your capacity for those who are super sensitive on where their data is and how is their data handled for data protection purposes. So we'll do the same thing, basically picking the columns of the image that has the image URL, and then just do OK. This will take a few seconds. So while this is running, again, I have a completed one here. This looks very, very similar to what the key phrase extraction one. It gives you a JSON array of all of the tags that it's generated for certain image, and it's exploding the table by the number of tags it's generated. So now that I have that, what I could do is I could drop in a slicer, and I could put those tags in as my slicer. So then I can interact with my images. I can pick everything that has a sky in the picture, or I can pick ostrich, and this is an ostrich, for instance. So you can interact with your images by the tags itself. And now you might say, okay, so these are cool, but I want to kind of create my own model. I have a very specific use case that's not text related, that's not image related, and I want to build my own forecast model. And Power BI is able to integrate with Azure Machine Learning on that front as well. So here I have a very simple kind of table with humidity and temperature. Meanwhile, I have built a model within Azure Machine Learning that is using humidity and temperature to predict whether it's raining or not. So it's taking two inputs of humidity and temperature, and it's predicting what the probability of raining. So same thing in the Power Query Editor view. I go to Azure Machine Learning, and it picks up everything I have access to in terms of real-time inferencing endpoints. So I'm going to pick the one that I think is going to be useful to me. It does give you the details on when this is built and when was it modified as well. And so you can pick the right columns. As you can see, Power BI is quite smart. Because my column names match, it will pick it up automatically for me. And all I need to do is to click OK. And then it will go to score my data using the real-time endpoint. It does return as a JSON. So what you need to do is to pass it out. So I don't need humidity and temperature, as I already have these, and I don't need the original name as a prefix. So I get two columns returned. One is the labeled predictability, so whether it's raining or not, and the other is the probability of whether it's going to rain or not. This is taking slightly longer than expected, but once you have the prediction returned back, then what you can do is, again, you can build visuals on top and kind of interact with your scored data using Power BI instead. Now it's returns. Again, you can see some devices have it's raining and some doesn't, and you can kind of build visualizations on top of this as well. So you can see that I have interacted with a machine learning model. What if you want to kind of build a machine learning model within Power BI? It is also possible. So if we go to Power BI service, 1 second. And within my Power BI service, again, you will need to do this in either a premium or premium per user capacity. So what you can do is you can say, I want to build a new data flow. And we're going to do a new table in the data flow. And then you can select your data source. Data flows does work with 24 of these different sources. For this demo, we're just going to use a CSV, and I'm going to use a CSV in my Git repo. Again, this is a CSV in my Git repo, so it doesn't need any credentials. If you were to connect to something like a SQL DB or Azure Synapse, then you will need to enter credentials for those as well. This should load the preview of the table, and I just want to transform it. So this is diagram view, which we shipped last year. So instead of using the normal kind of Power Query editor view, you can do the drag and drop kind of visual representation of transforming data. I don't want to do a lot of changes. The only thing I wanted to do is to kind of change this revenue to be true or false. This is a set of data that is my kind of online shopper intentions. So it's got all the attributes about that particular session that my user had and whether that resulted in purchasing or not on the website. And I want to build a prediction model based on that. So because I want to build a prediction model of whether a customer has bought from us or not, so I'm using the kind of the data type as true or false for binary prediction. So once I change that, I can do save and close. And we're just going to save this data flow as online. Intention. And I'll save. So once this is saved, what you can do is to kick off a machine learning model. So in the actions here, there's a brain sign. So what you can do is to say, add a machine learning model. I want to use the table that I just manipulated, and I want to give it an outcome column. And this is the column where you are predicting the outcome. So we want to predict whether that session had resulted in revenue or not, or a purchase or not for us. So we can go next with this. Now, Power BI is smart enough to figure out, because you have a true or false column, you're trying to do a binary prediction. You can also click up here to kind of select a different model. It does work with regressions, classifications, time series forecasting as well. So you can pick a kind of true or false, because we try to predict the sessions that resulted in purchase. So we will pick true and then leave everything as it is. We'll go next. So next, Power BI will do some preliminary analysis, trying to understand the correlations between your data points and give you a recommendation on what columns that you will need to include in your model, and also give you an explanation why the Power BI doesn't recommend you to include certain columns in your model. For instance, these have very low correlation with your target columns, so Power BI is recommending you not to include those, but you can defy Power BI and say, I want to include these, or, I don't think this is important. I want to exclude these based on your domain knowledge. You don't have to stick with the recommendation. You can change these around as you wish. For now, we will sort of leave everything as it is. We trust Power BI's recommendation. We'll go next. So here you will need to give it a model name. So we'll give it a model name. You can give it a description as well. And here's the important bit. Because AutoML will traverse through all of the models that we have in the library and travel through all of the combination of hyperparameters. So you do want to give it a decent amount of time so Power BI can find the right kind of model and the combination of parameters for you, but you also don't want to leave it running for so long. It is running on your premium capacity or premium per user capacity, so you don't want to that to be like long running, so it interferes with your users' interaction with the reports. So give it a decent amount of time, but not too short, so that it doesn't have time to kind of evaluate all of the different models. So because it's a demo, we're going to leave it like 20 minutes for this to run and find the answer for us. Obviously, we don't have 20 minutes today to just wait for this to happen. So I have trained a model before, and I will show you the outcome of that. But once this is kicked off, you will see that if we click into it, once this is kicked off, you will see that Power BI has generated 2 additional tables. One is the training table, the other is the testing data table. And in the machine learning models, you will be able to see what's the type of prediction, and you can rerun it if you want. And it does give you a training report by the end of it. And also it gives you the status and the last trend. So I had trained a report previously, so I'll show you what the report looks like. So you have the model performance based on the particular type of model that you've chosen. So because we had the binary predictions, so the model metric it's chosen is AUC. You can see the thresholds or manipulate the threshold, and then to try to achieve the balance between precision and recall. It does give you the cost analysis or cost benefit analysis of a unit cost of a threshold as well. And you can click here on the top predictors. So this, for those of you who are in the beginning of the session and this doesn't work for me today, you will be able to see the top influencers for the outcomes. So these typically would be the most important features to include in the model as well. The next page or next tab you have on the model report is details on the model performance. And the last one you have, I don't know why this is not working. Refresh this for seconds. The last page on the training details, typically you would have something like how many iterations this has run, and also what model it has chosen, and what parameter it's chosen for the final model. So you can see the details of the training process as well. So hopefully now it's going to work. You also have a apply model bottom on the top. So so now you can see the predictors of different feature importance. So how many pages a certain user has been on will be a great predictor for whether it resulted in a purchase or not. And the model accuracy report looks like this, and the training details report looks like this. So it does give you the final model that's got picked based on the number of iterations run, and tells you the kind of featureization summaries and the hyperparameters being selected. And once you're happy with everything, you can do apply model. So what this will do is it will apply this model to a new kind of set of data. So you could have a table here that has brand new data that hasn't been scored, and then you can basically give the model, apply the model to that specific table, and then get the scored labels and the scored probabilities returned by the model as well. So we're going to save and apply. As you can see, once you do that, you will have 2 additional tables to what we just see, which basically is go in there, is explanations and the query enriched model itself. If I click into it, you'll be able to see there's 4 more columns. One is the outcome, one is the predicted score, and these are the important ones. And what you can then do is, for instance, connect to the data flow within your Power BI desktop and build a visualization based on your prediction using the AutoML model itself. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. So today we covered insights, enrichment, the integration with Azure machine learning, and the AutoML piece where you are building a machine learning model and then applying it within Power BI service. There will be more AI investments coming from Microsoft's side. So keep an eye out in this space. And yeah, we're very excited to make this more interesting and more useful for the end users. Now I'm going to go to the Q&A piece. Just a few links on there. I've made a hands-on lab for some of the content I have covered in this session. So if you're interested in doing this kind of step-by-step, follow the first link. It's aka.ms PBI Cookbook AI Labs. And PBI Cookbook is something, Git repo that me and a couple of my coworkers put together that has a lot of Power BI resources, including some free training resources, as well as by topic blogs we've written, useful documentations on those topics. So if you're interested in Power BI, do give that a look. And then also my contacts in LinkedIn in case you want to connect or have any questions on Power BI, Synapse, or Databricks. I'm happy to answer those. Okay. Any questions on the topics? I do apologize that there's quite a lot of moments today that Demo God was throwing a fit at me today. So.
Yeah, they were not smiling on you, but you did very well. I don't have any questions in there, but I did want to say this was so awesome. So I use Power BI all the time in my job, but I don't use the AI features just because of the nature of what I'm doing. So this was very cool to see how all of these different features can play a part and how easy they are to use. So thank you for that.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, so if you're interested, go to the cookbook, and we'll add more content in there to make the kind of, if you're a user of Power BI, we're hoping to make the resources more available to the wider audience as well. So yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.